So does that mean we're live now?
It says going live, and it says you're live. When did you have the toucan up? Because that's what's streaming at the moment.
This is the worst introduction we have ever done. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Hi. I hope everyone's well. I'm a little bit sleepy. Michael's a little bit orange, and we are joined by the fabulous Miguel, also known as Bitbrain, who's on this side of me, I think.
Hey.
And so you can introduce yourself. I know it's the best intro ever, wasn't it?
I'll make you full screen as well.
Boop. Ooh.
Oh.
So
wow.
Let's actually give him a chance. Tell us about your YouTube channel and what you make.
Yeah, so my name is Miguel, Bitbrain, and I build games with Godot engine. Well, at the moment, I built a very particular game with a project named Cave. And now comes the elevator pitch, and I'm actually still trying to get the pitch for the game right because I still don't know what the pitch is.
Right.
But imagine Stardew Valley in the mines of Moria, but the dwarves are still alive, and you uncover the secrets of a mountain, and you forge and fight goblins and stuff like that. Yeah, it's a terrible pitch at the moment, but
no, I'm sort of seeing it. It's kind of Stardew Dwarf Fortress Moria.
Yeah, also a little bit Dwarf Fortress in terms of storytelling. And someone said a craft 'em up. It's going to be a craft 'em up.
I like that. Let me do this so I can actually see the chat things. We should probably check, can people hear us? And are we actually live?
Because yes, we should always check that sort of thing because I often forget to click buttons. Hello, Roderick. How are you doing?
Open the chat.
There's Roderick. Hello. Okay, awesome. Yes, people can hear us. Excellent. Actually, I was watching. Was it a documentary? It was one of the weird things that happened during the development of Dwarf Fortress, just after they added cats. And they doubled down so much on procedural and systemic gameplay that their cats kept dying. And they couldn't figure out why. And then they finally figured out the cats were walking through the bar. The bar was covered in alcohol. The cats were cleaning the alcohol off themselves and dying of alcohol poisoning. Like, the simulation was so deep, it was ridiculous.
That's fantastic.
There's a Twitter account who, on a daily basis, tweets ridiculous bugs in Dwarf Fortress caused by procedural generation. It's hilarious.
I've actually been looking at, because we passed the stretch goal to turn our game into a roguelike, and I'm looking at, okay, so what needs to change? Because that changes like everything. That is like first principles changes. And just basic things like, okay, navigation has to be rethought from first principles, but the way weapons are made, because I want weapons to have like this little modular thing, so it builds like, not just here's the pommel, here's the hilt, here's the blade, but here's the material, here are the keywords, maybe a little story about it. And I'm watching this and it's like, okay, so each of these things has to be plugged in the right order. And it's Dwarf Fortress is kind of the gold standard, and I wish I was better at it. I'm so bad at that game. Hello, Pakosh. Good to see you.
I think the barrier to entry is one of these things where I think the fun you can have with the game once you entered the core and understand the rules. I envy people who are able to be there, but I think the problem is you need to invest time, right? And you don't really know if it's worth it. Like, for example, EVE Online. A lot of my friends play that every day for many hours, and I'm a space game nerd. And when I see them enjoying the game, I'm like, oh, I want to play this game. But when I start it up, I'm like, oh man, I need to invest so much time in this to actually enjoy this game. Is it actually worth it? And then I'm like, no, I'm going to close it again.
I think Dwarf Fortress also has the Space Station 13 thing, which is they've designed their own interface, which isn't like any other interface. And you have to become fluent in it to even start enjoying the game. And I loved Space Station 13. I played it for years. And I had some amazing gaming memories in it. But it took me about 6 months to be able to play it, just to relearn the whole thing. Someone asked me recently in, I think it was one of our Facebook groups, or a comment. It was about the drag and drop inventory system we put in the game. And they were saying, do all games have to have this sort of Windows-like aesthetic? It's like, well, they don't. But if you're starting a UI from scratch, like a whole language, then your game better be pretty simple, because otherwise you've got the Dwarf Fortress problem. You're going to have to memorize every symbol, every interaction, every button press.
I really got confused when we were playing Divinity Original Sin 2. That was one of those games where the UI didn't make a whole lot of sense when I first started playing it. And I would either fill up my UI or dump a load of stuff in Jan's inventory. I went, oh, I could get rid of all my junk. But I'll take this really heavy barrel of water. Jan doesn't look like he's got much in his inventory.
But all my gold went missing, so thanks for that. Also, Michael was very good at accidentally setting me on fire.
What is your favorite UI in any game?
Ooh.
That's a deep question.
XCOM 2 is very good. I think really the best UI for me is the one that you don't notice. Right? The one that's so in that moment, so seamless. And I know Dead Cells is kind of like not Dead Cells, what's the spacey horror? Everything is on it.
Yeah.
That one.
I've really enjoyed games that the UI is completely removed from it, so that you're in the world itself. You don't have a compass. You actually have to use some senses about it, and navigate that way. And that only suits certain games. You know you can't have a driving sim without that, because you still need your dials and stuff. And
I mean, we were talking about this recently when we were looking at what's going to have to happen, especially when we start doing procedure-generated inventory, and we need to figure out what the UI is going to be. You have to understand what you're carrying without just mousing over everything. Is designing the experience the player's going to have. It reminds me of, I was playing the new Humankind game, the Civ killer that people are very excited about.
Yeah.
And the UI is beautiful, and I just cannot pass it. I have no idea what is happening. Like, I keep getting like halfway through the game and going, am I doing okay? What do I have? What's I don't know.
Yeah.
I have least favorite UIs.
So for me, actually one of the games that inspired me to take this approach in Cave to make a very minimalistic UI is Sea of Thieves. Like in Sea of Thieves, as you already said, right? The UI is in the game. Well, there's a little bit UI with health bar and things like that, but
yeah.
With the compass works, with the map works. Yeah, it's very clever.
You actually need to use items in the world to play the game, which sounds kind of weird, right? You need to use items in the world to play the game, but
it was lots of fun when Jan and I were playing it, because the fact that we had to plan our journey, we would actually have to both go to the map and like, you're in the way. It adds a bit of a dynamic, and you can't both play with the map at the same time.
Or just the fact that the map isn't by the wheel, like little things like that, which makes sense because you don't want it wet, right? So it's just the very physical layout of a ship changes how the UI works. Sea of Thieves has a wonderful UI system. I wish it didn't double down quite so hard on random PvP. Because sometimes you just want to have adventures without being griefed.
And I also don't like the purely cosmetic progression. Like obviously, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because with this system, you can actually play endgame content with someone who plays this game for 2 years as a beginner. So it's actually the barrier to entry is quite low. But on the other side, when you play this game for 2 years,
it's just
you can only show off cosmetics. And like the one thing in terms of progression I would love to have is like an own island that gets spawned into the world when you start the game and where you can build stuff on.
That'd be very nice.
Like and obviously like the world is fixed and stuff, but on each server I think there are like 10 or 20 players spawned always, and then the islands of these players could be spawned into the world as well. I would love that. Right?
There's plenty of space on the map for it as well.
All I want to do is chop trees. I want to have an axe and chop trees and
you want a survival game in Sea of Thieves.
Yeah.
No, I can see that. I mean, I do love a good survival game. I tell you, actually, one that has a very good interface that I'm very impressed by is Guild Wars 2, the MMO. Because there's so much information you need to pass, and it does such a good job of like introducing these concepts in a very organic way that you don't even notice there's a tutorial happening. That by the time you get a quarter of the way into the game, you're just reading the information. You don't know that you're doing it, but you understand this is this danger, this is this danger. If I stand over there, I can fire an arrow through my friend's fire shield, and it's a fire arrow. Like, you just get it. I think the one I have the most problem with is probably No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky is beautiful, and I do enjoy that game. But it was quite clearly designed for console, and trying to play it with a keyboard and mouse is so irritating. So I can see the icon I want to get to, but I have to remember that I can't just click on it. Instead, I have to go X, up cursor, right cursor, F, not E, and then over here. And there's like all these weird little combinations that just don't make sense. And so I've got this, what looks like a really clean point and click UI, and none of it actually works. But it just doesn't do what it says it does.
The thing is, they actually improved it a lot.
I was playing the other day.
Yeah. But again, I think the UI itself is not the prettiest one. But I love that game to bits. It's one of these on and off games I play basically always, but I always take breaks from it because at some point it satisfies my space nerd.
It's
needs.
wonderful for exploring, and I kind of have a love-hate relationship with the New Frontiers update they've done, where they've got this sort of build a Mos Eisley type settlement, which is cool, and it's not very difficult, but it's time-gated. So, okay, you've donated these materials, come back in 3 hours. Like, okay,
I'll
just gonna log off for a bit.
Bye.
Do something else. Like,
yeah.
I think a game that tells you just don't do this bit for a bit, come back. I tell you one I was very impressed by recently, from a UI point of view especially, is Rogue Legacy 2. It was surprising. I'm very bad at these platform rogue games, but it's very fast paced and you can read everything you need to know very quickly. There's a couple of mechanics in there that I still don't fully get. Like there's some things they could do better, but in terms of moment to moment gameplay, it does it very well. Taco says Horizon Zero has awesome UI except when it comes to the inventory. That part is entirely broken. You know, I've heard that about Horizon. Jade was telling me that the other day. It's a shame. It looks really pretty.
It does look incredibly pretty. It's one of those games that I have actually now bought for PC, and it will probably stay in my library.
Unplayed forever. Yeah. Like all your other games.
Sorry.
Favorite UI? Operation Tango.
That is a fantastic game.
Operation Tango is a 2-player only game. Only one of you needs to buy it.
Operation Tango.
And what's incredible about it is the way they split the game up into 2 halves, but you don't see the same information. You have to share the information. It's very keep talking and no one explodes, but as a spy thriller.
This looks cool.
It's very cool.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Wow.
So the operative is doing this weird sneaking around, dodging security lasers and all the rest of it. And the hacker is basically living in the Matrix, but not lame. And so you've got completely different things and constantly having to rediscover the UI as you go. And the discovering what's happening is amazing. And there's nothing quite like being on a train that's about to blow up and hearing somebody saying, okay, I see a triangle. They're all triangles. What kind of triangle? I don't know, a pointy one. Just, worth playing. You need 2 people for it, but definitely worth playing.
I really like the way that they, as Jan was saying, only one of you needs to buy it, but the other person can guest into it. So there's not this, you both have to buy the game. I think it's a really smart move by the developers.
Nice.
I
installed on the weekend. I installed the New World beta.
Are you enjoying it?
So for people who don't know New World, right? It's the MMO backed by the
Amazon.
by a company with unlimited money, basically, right? And the game looks very, very pretty. Like I think it's one of the most pretty looking MMOs I've ever played. Also, the UI is really amazing. Like when you get experience, like the little XP bar blinks up, you get like a little pop-up number that's like click, and you get this very satisfying sound. But for some reason, after an hour, I had to log off because it's throwing all the information it can at you. Like straight away, everything starts to blink, everything pops up, and then here's crafting. Here are reputational.
Here's the 3 factions.
Yeah, factions, and here, and you need to do this quest, that quest. By the way, here's the world map with all the zones unlocked. Like you can actually see the entire world map. And I was like, okay, that's
zombie. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's a little bit too much for me. Where when you compare that to Breath of the Wild, which I haven't played yet, by the way, I still need to play it. It's on my list. But I've watched a lot of videos about Breath of the Wild, and from what I've seen, their approach is to give you information out as you discover. So the world map is empty, and when you discover something, it unlocks. And this is also what I want to do with my game as well, where you have no idea where you're going, right? Everything is like dark, and only when you go somewhere, you have a map where you see, this is where I came from.
I find games much more approachable when you have to discover things instead of being front-loaded with information. I mean, obviously some need a tutorial. Speaking of UI, though, that I don't like, I remember the first time I opened up Fortnite. I mean, it's a UI disaster. I was like, I just want to play the game. And I was kind of looking around this screen full of, like, nothing that I can see that says play. I'm like...
Speaking of play, we should probably show off the thing we made.
Do you want me to show off your boids?
Show off the boids.
Yes. I want to see it.
So this week, while I've been working to do like the non-sexy, well, very sexy, but there's no visual representation of let's add classes to the game and let's add procedural generation, stuff where you can't actually show until it's done. And like, I want to get some boids in here. So I made some boids. For those of you who don't know, boid stands for boid. No, it stands for bird-like objectoid. And it's just a simple way of
I've learned something new.
Simulating flock behavior for birds and fishes and insects and stuff like that. And it follows 3 basic rules. And the first rule is alignment. So if you're close to and can see other boids, match their motion. So go in the same direction as them. The second one is cohesion. If you're near other boids, try and get to the center of that mass. And the third is separation. Avoid each other. And the 3 rules together, if you tweak them right, give you this lovely thing. I've also put in a basic collision avoidance, so they won't hit trees and you, which turned out to be quite expensive, and I'm quite happy with the little workaround I found there. And on my computer, I can have 25 of these just fine, but if I have 50, it slows down. They're not free, they're not fully optimized.
Oh, they're white, so they might be a bit difficult to see on stream. Now that they're white,
you can change it. You have access to the code.
I do. There they are. Okay, chat. What color shall I make the boids?
Someone asked if the towers are called pylons in Breath of the Wild. Were they called pylons?
I don't know. I've actually not played Breath of the Wild. I've seen it played, but if you hang out roughly where you are... Oh, wait, I'm seeing you 30 seconds behind. Or am I giving advice?
I don't know. I'm going in and changing the material.
Right now, they're just glowing, so they'll look white, but change them whatever color you like. I would make them black if you want, then you can't see me against the tree. It's the emission you want to change, not the albedo.
That's further down, isn't it?
This was actually a fun little challenge because all the little bugs were quite hard to spot because they look like they're working fine until you realize, they're just going back and forth between 2 points. And you realize, I'm not moving away from a position, I'm moving to a global position. Like, it really tests things. The solution I found for collision avoidance I was quite happy with, which is the standard way you do this, you just do a cone of rays, right? But if you want to hit everything, you end up with about 100, 150 rays. And scanning through each of those on each void,
it's quite
every
expensive.
frame is expensive. So instead, each one has 10 in a line, and I've just used an animation player, and it just does that every 0.2 seconds. And it works fine.
Oh, we've actually got 2 groups. I like it when they split up into 2 groups. So we've got a group flying over there, and we've just got a group flying near the origin.
If you stand over in the water by the stepping stones over to the secret axe that nobody's found, did I just spoil that? They will congregate there after a while because that's the origin.
Someone in chat asked what we think of version control, or no, what we use for version control. So I use Git for Cave. It's the private repository on GitHub. The reason why it's private is eventually I want to sell it on Steam. So making that code open source would be not a smart move. And basically I use Git. And the reason why I do that is when I record my devlogs, and I'm like, oh, I need a little bit of footage from like 2 months ago. I simply check out that particular commit from 2 months ago, start the game, and can actually record footage from 2 months ago, even if the game already progressed. And that's very powerful when you want to do auto retrospectives or want to travel back in time.
Definitely.
Yeah.
My problem with it is I'm not very good at Git. In fact, very bad with Git. And at least once per project, it will go critically wrong. As Pakosh was saying, we use GitHub 2. Currently, it's a private repository because we're a very early prototype. We're not ready to share anything yet. And I'm using Gitcrack. And the problem we're having is when we do an update that accidentally makes this file way too big. Like when I tried baked lighting and it made the main dungeon scene like 150 meg. And GitHub just went, nope.
Yeah, you need large files.
It wouldn't tell me why. It just went, nope.
Yeah, it threw an error which wasn't anything to do about file being too large. And we had one when I first put the HDRI in this particular scene. It was we did an 8K version, and it was something like 78 meg, and we thought, oh, brilliant, that's under the 100 meg limit. But Godot unpacked it to 102 megs, so we sat there scratching our head, going, "What's broken?"
Yeah.
Jessica is right. Boids are actually named so that you can just say Boids.
Right, Boids.
On the top of a branch, she had a little tomtit. I don't know. It's one of those things that just make the scene like feel a lot more alive. I'm really happy with how the overworld has come about.
Can you show something?
It's on the thing right now, but if Michael shares his screen with us, we could see it.
That button.
Oh.
Yeah.
I forget about that button.
There we go.
But don't go down. Also show the overworld.
Oh.
Look, tutorial.
Have you had a chance to see this or play with it yet?
There we go.
No, not yet.
They've come back.
So the overworld was added 2 weeks ago. And we've added a bunch of things. Things I'm really proud of is we took the wind shader that GD Quest wrote and tweaked it slightly so it also works with our trees. And it just, that little difference makes such a huge impact to how alive the world feels. You put in some bird song and some water sounds, and you've got this wonderful little thing. And we're using scatter and so on. We've got like 1,000 static body trees and 2,700 mesh instance trees and 2,500 plants. And I can run at 60 frames a second capped constantly. Like it doesn't notice it.
They're the Boids.
There's the Boids.
Oh.
My boys. Yeah.
I hadn't realized you hadn't been seeing them the whole time.
Can you cut down trees in this game? In this
No, but it is a thing we could do.
Yeah.
If we reach our crafting stretch goal.
So what we've done is each of these trees here is a scene. And we're using the scatter plugin, which is a mesh instance manager, right? So all the trees on the hill are just meshes and they're just scattered and they only count as one tree. So they're very cheap. But we need to tell it, no, you have to instance these. These are static bodies. So it's actually bringing each tree in. So they're very, very simple trees. We've removed any alpha from them because that was quite expensive. Calculating the light through all of those different leaves was slowing the game down. Making them solid just solved the problem. There's PT. He's our overworld shop. And then if you wanted to, each of those trees could have a script. So that's how you could do the chopping down thing.
This is Godot 4, right?
For people who are not 3.3.
Oh.
It will be Godot 4, but Godot 4 wasn't stable on my machine. So it's like, well, we'll make the prototype in 3.3.
So you already get that
performance out.
Wow. So you get this performance already with Godot 3.
Yes.
Wait till we get Vulkan.
This is going to look.
I'm so looking forward to things like the new lighting system.
Yeah.
The new collision particles, like the stuff we could do with fire spells and water, and standing under the waterfall with like little sprays bouncing off you. And it was just playing with the plugins, really.
Nice. I just love in games to walk through foresty areas, like the shadow of the trees with the sun. I love it.
Have we got God Race turned on? No, not on the overworld.
It would be, Paco says, it would be also for there to be smooth transition between the scenes, additional items to be improved for precision generation. So here's the thing. Smooth transition between scenes is entirely doable. You just load both scenes in at the same time and then have a scene manager and say, hide this, show that, right? And you can just fade. That's the thing. But if you also want to procedurally generate the dungeon and make it different every time you go down there, you have to stop and run that.
Definitely. That's why loading screens exist. So the way that the world doesn't seem like it's smoothly transitioning, you can cover up with loading screens, with tooltips and other things.
I could definitely put a resource load manager and show a progress bar and all the rest of it. But
all right, PT, this is a stick up.
Or if Miguel hasn't seen this running, you should show him the downstairs now.
That's not a two-handed weapon. I wish there was a two-handed weapon on the surface.
So right here, it's just load a scene. So we get a pause, which doesn't feel great. But once we're in, these are the walls that I turn into the assets for your, what was it, 1 hour coding challenge?
Nope,
Now here,
I'm dodging.
I can get 40 frames a second on my machine. I can get higher. And the problem is we're using a grid map. And grid maps are fantastic. They're great. But they have a couple of issues which are linked entirely to them being one object.
Like
which
culling,
means
for example.
You can't cull them. You can't do occlusion culling. The light that's hitting them hits the entire level. So, you have to manually say this light is out of range, turn it off. So there's stuff you could do to make it better. But because we're now turning this into a roguelike, we're going to move away from grid maps and have each room as an instant scene and just choose them from the list and plot them out on the map and do the whole tree, the whole algorithm, which is going to allow us to say, okay, this is out of sight and out of range. Just don't render this room.
Yes, I just cheesed my way through.
I have to keep putting in little things in our game to stop Michael from cheesing things. Like the throne in the boss room just throws spikes into you if you sit on it.
Look at all these potions.
Our potions are dynamically generated, so I've created a scene that is a potion spawner that has a chance of spawning one of the 3 potions we have currently in the game. Same with the books. Michael's taken them all because, one, they're useful to be sold. You should show him what the green potion does, by the way.
Doink.
Oh, this reminds me of World of Warcraft.
A little bit.
When you can have the skeleton costume.
Yep, and the skellies won't attach you. These are our in dungeon shops, which don't give you the same price.
This is so cool. I love the icons.
They're fun, aren't they? Unfortunately, these are not the ones we are designing. These are the placeholder ones we have, but they were in a humble bundle. Like, let's just bring those in.
They look really nice.
They're
fun.
Like it. We had a lot of fun making this, and we're having a lot of fun making this.
What can I buy?
Should we a Possible Dad's staircase? Yes, Pakosh, we could absolutely put in that thing. The thing is, procedural generation, we'd need to know how long to give it, right? If you make a player walk down a 20-second spiral staircase every time they want to go down there and walk up again, they're gonna get annoyed. They're not gonna know why it's
did that.
Yeah.
They did that so many times.
Right, or like in Mass Effect when you're in that stupid elevator listening to dialogue you don't care about. Just show me a loading screen. Don't play elevator music at me.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm demonetized.
I'm not a massive fan of loading screens. I never was. But on the other side to avoid them. Oh, what was
sticky
that?
Keys.
It's the doop.
Yep.
The Windows sound. Or some Sense Castle, Sense Fortress elements. I like that.
I was very, very happy when I made those fire jets.
This gives me Dark Souls flashbacks.
Ooh.
So many people say that, and it's weird because I've not played Dark Souls. I'm a big fan of the design choices they made. I just never played it.
You should add one of these thingies Yes,
axes.
swinging
I
axes.
do. I want to. Here's our epic weapon.
Ooh. Poor
That's more to
Skellies.
show. So the game, from a game design point of view, this is a terrible idea. Jump some easy traps, pick up an epic weapon, one-shot everything. But from a tutorial point of view, it's like this is how you would do an epic weapon that cannot spawn in any other chest. This is, our chests have a chance of spawning certain types of loot. Falling into the pit will kill you. Little things like that. Like just teaching. Here's how you make your version of the game.
Yeah.
Someone is asking how many FPS you would expect on the overworld with Godot 4.
That's an excellent question. So I would expect it to be much higher, partly because the lighting engine is much better, partly because the Vulkan renderer is better. But we are also waiting on the plugins. So if we're using the God Rays plugin and it still comes in, actually we probably wouldn't need to because it's volumetric fog.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't need that one. I would expect to get much better results, but the proof is in the eating, right? The proof of the pudding is in the eating. Which is a phrase that doesn't work now that the meaning of the word to prove has changed. Oh yeah, you're going to show off the boss.
I'll get rid of his minions first.
What is your opinion on Godot 4 launching without OpenGL support?
I mean, the reason they're moving to Vulkan in the first place is that they did GLES and then GLES stopped being supported. So it makes sense to me, given that they ran the numbers and only like a small percentage of computers couldn't run Vulkan and wouldn't see the benefit. And I think delaying it even further by like 6 months or whatever it was going to be for that small percentage, just the math doesn't work. But I can see why people are annoyed. How about you? What do you think about it?
The thing is, I personally wouldn't even care. But from what I understand, this impacts HTML5 export, right? Because you can't run a game in Vulkan, right?
That's true.
Yeah, and the problem is when I do game jams, like the reason why I actually started Godot was also because it's so easy to create web games with it. And because I did a game jam 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, and we tried to export the game in Unity. So we were building the game in Unity, and the web build took 10 minutes to build, and the file was like 90 megabyte in size. It's like, what is going on there, right? Wow, because in Godot you click export and bloop,
it's file, it's done.
It's there, and you upload it, bloop. It's just a couple of meg in size, even less than a meg sometimes. And it surprised me, right? And I think this is it's quite powerful that you can go on itch and play a game straight away. It makes Godot highly accessible, and like removing that for the new version, like as a launch, I don't know, like I can't then do a game jam with Godot 4, stream it and show it off because I wouldn't be able to put that game on itch.io for people to play straight away, unless there's some way to do that.
I mean, as Pakosh is pointing out, the WebGL support is due out a couple of months later, or a few months later.
It's going to take you a couple of months to get the game working properly if you've already prototyped it in Godot 3.
Well, that doesn't work for a game jam, but yes.
Also,
I think that's one of those edge cases, but unfortunately it's one of those edge cases that comes up a lot because Godot is gaining a lot of popularity in jams. But I think the trade-off is worth it. I mean, like the new dynamic lighting system, or the what's it called? It's not I forgot the name of the lighting system, SDFI or something. Is just beautiful. The new procedural sky stuff, the physical sky stuff, it's so easy now to make beautiful sky effects where you tell it, this is the color of the sky, this is the nighttime image, the sun is here in this color, here's the angle, and it'll just work out dawn and dusk for you. And just transition seamlessly just by rotating a light. It's like there's so much that's worth it.
So here are my top 3 features. I can't wait to actually port Cave to Godot 4 because of these features. Feature number 1, the tile map support, the upgrade one, which will have animated tiles, and
better auto tiling and better collision.
Terrain brush, Like for like not a 3D terrain brush, but like a tiled terrain brush that knows transitions between different tile types, which will be needed for my game. Like I need that kind of thing.
Yep.
Second thing, I'm very looking forward to that. The navigation server.
Yes.
So it gets a dedicated navigation server where you can actually. What I can then do is I can implement a click system. You click on the map, and the player walks there with collision detection with physics.
Obstacle avoidance that will actually take into account rigid bodies moving across. Because right now in Godot, if you use a navigation node with a navigation instance, the navigation instance is baked off the static bodies it's next to. It won't take into account rigid bodies and anything like that, which means doors don't work.
Yep.
Like it either thinks this is a door, I can't cross it forever and ever and ever, or your NPC will just walk into the door and faceplant. Which in the current iteration of Godot 3 is leading to an interesting problem for me when I'm making the procedurally generated rooms, because if it's a grid map, I can say, this is fixed, here is your navigation.
Yeah.
If it's going to be generated at runtime, I need to figure out how to get those navigations to touch. And you can get navigations to touch and count as one navigation mesh, but it's notoriously fiddly. Whereas in Godot 4, that's much less of an issue, because I can just run the navigation server and it'll do its thing.
So I mentioned two. Two features.
Give me a third.
What do you think is the third feature? I'm super excited for what Godot 4 will bring. As a 2D game.
I was going to say 3D.
No.
Because Godot 3 can't do 3D, yeah?
No, Unity could do 3D. Tell me.
It's basically the new GDScript version.
Yes.
And the reason why this is my personal most anticipated feature is because you can create custom resource exports. So what this means at the moment, you can create a custom GDScript resource script, and then you can reference that resource everywhere, right? But you can't say export my custom resource. You can't say that. It says it's not a resource type. It's like, wait, but it's a resource. No,
we decided that earlier.
Yeah. With Godot 4, it actually supports that. And then in the editor, you can drag and drop that custom resource type. And I think you can even program custom UIs for it with plugins. And I really need that for my game. Yeah. I have some hacks in place at the moment. And it works by accident.
The one I think is really interesting that no one mentions, but makes a big difference, is the improvement to the inspector screen. The way, instead of it just being a bunch of drop-down menus, is actually nested in a way so you can see, oh, that is this property from this class is inheriting. Because there are times when I'm doing stuff in Godot and I need to remember. I remember Adrian, who ran Godot Jam, asking me, why is friction not working in my level? He was making a 3D level. He was very excited by CSG nodes. And it just wasn't counting friction. And I had to explain to him it's because CSG nodes are geometry instances. They're not physics bodies. There is no friction. They don't have a surface material. They don't have physics properties. But if you have that inspector and this nice color-coded thing, it's very easy to see, oh, there is nowhere for this to inherit from. Things I'm excited about. The new lighting system. I mention this all the time. It's just beautiful. I'm very interested in physics particles. I think there's some stuff you could do there with things like mist and vapor trails that could be very cool. Like a character walking through a misty room and the mist is reacting is a very different feeling. I don't know how expensive that would be. And on the latest build of Godot 4, particles weren't working on my machine, so I can't play with it.
So there's a solution. There's a plugin for Unreal Engine where someone does that with some sort of shader system with a reactive fog that even has physics interaction. And that crazy thing is that this system is also used to generate clouds. So you can have like a cloud system, weather system that interacts with objects. Like when you have a mountain and the clouds literally like fade around the mountain, it's insane.
Oh, it makes such a difference.
Yeah. Just look it up. Look something up like Unreal Engine 4 plugin clouds or something, or fork. You see, like I think it's the first link.
It's those little touches, right? It's like the foliage moving in the breeze. Like your brain goes, "Oh, this feels more real now. Like I'm there." It was actually that moment where we put in the not just the grass but the leaves blowing in the breeze, and I uploaded it and I said, "Mikey, I've done something awesome. Play the latest build." And I watched him play it, and he just spent 10 minutes walking around a forest, like not wanting to switch it off. And like that was the moment where it was like, "This is a fun place to just walk." And I think volumetric fog physics fog and physics clouds and mist and smoke and fire and water. I'm kind of torn for my third one. I would say that the speed improvements for typed GD script, mostly because it solves the why would you use typed GD script a lot of the time. Like this debate that goes back and forth. Should it be dynamic? Should it be typed? A lot of the time I like using dynamic GD script until it gets too big and then I just need to like nail it down. But we hit points in our prototype where we have to optimize and we're like trying all these different things to optimize and just saying, well, if we're using type GD script, we can expect a speed increase of about 20%. Currently,
big.
I mean, in most cases, 20% speed increase, you're not going to notice. But when you're actually crunching against people's,
Oh yeah,
GPUs,
the difference between like 20 and 25 frames per second is really noticeable. Between 100 and 120, not so much.
I am looking forward to talking about different things you can do to optimize, because we had where Michael was making the trees for our overworld, we just reached the overworld thing. We should make an overworld to show them what this is going to look like. We can't just put it in the abstract. We were trying different models, and he made this lovely one with textured trees and alpha, and the frame rate just dropped.
It's a balance between having that geometry or having the transparency, because obviously you could put a load of textures on the trees with transparency, but when you line up, like, I don't know, you might have 50 trees in a row, it's got to calculate the light. And obviously after maybe the first 5, it's all blocked anyway, but it's still got to calculate
It's still going to do the calculation.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've learned a lot of things, and there's also like we had to massively simplify the models, and we've noticed nobody actually could tell the difference. Like nobody said to us, "Hey, how come their hands don't close around their swords anymore?" It's like, because we're not using 40 bones anymore. We're using like 10 or whatever it is.
Yeah, a lot less.
So I don't know. There's a lot of things I'm really excited about. I'm excited about the fact that you'll be able to generate audio through code. Like, I think there's a lot of interesting stuff you could do with that. I mean, as well as, writing your own synthesizer. But there was that game that came out recently, Veil, which is this traditional RPG. You are the princess who's been cheated out of a kingdom. You got to fight. But it's a game written for people who are not sighted. So the entire game happens in audio. And most people who can see close their eyes and they're playing the game, just like a focus on exactly where everything is, and like doing stuff like that where you can generate the audio on the fly or procedurally, all kinds of stuff, has a lot of potential.
Yeah. So what I'm currently doing for Cave is so I'm basically joined by 2 amazing people, Tom and Simon. Both I met through game jams, and Tom does all the sound effects. Simon does the music for Cave. And what we are basically currently migrating to is Fmod. For people who are not aware, for example, Celeste completely used Fmod for their sound system. And what this basically allows sound designers to do, they have artistic control. Like they can, in the Fmod editor, they can create sounds and live try it out in the game. They can like switch out sounds and tweak sound effects live while they play the game. And it's a very powerful tool for people who have no idea about coding, or they don't even need to worry about Godot engine. They just have Fmod. And I'm very excited to like integrate that. And I'm going to do a devlog on that as well. I intend to make an entire video on sound only in Cave, because I think it deserves that.
Sound is so important. We were looking at Fmod, in fact, for Mag Racer, because of all of the different nuances that we could get with all the ship sounds and everything else. So yeah,
those of you who don't know, Mag Racer was we tried kickstarting this last year just as the pandemic hit. So, but it was our Wipeout inspired high speed 3D physics future racer. And it was a lot of fun. The problem I kind of need to go on a tangent here. The problem we had with Mag Racer as a control system was there's a big difference between how Wipeout plays in your mind and how it actually plays. In your mind, your Wipeout craft is this hovering magnetic ship that sort of flies. In reality, the game is on rails and your ship moves and the camera is just following the track. So I designed an actual magnetic repulsion system where there's a bunch of rays under the craft, it's taking the inverse square of the distance and pushing back and all the rest of it. So I created a very high speed floaty boat racer, which is, it was like steering a boat, incredible high speed. So the skill ceiling or the skill floor, like the amount of practice you had to do just to get around the course, was really hard. But because I was developing the game, I didn't notice that. So I'm going around the course easily and like coming first and first and first, and everyone else trying the prototype is like, I can't get around the first corner.
So, and I actually think that From Software, when they built Dark Souls, they had the same experience.
Yep.
They were like, "Oh, this is easy," and
no one can get past the first round.
The thing's now, like, I played all the I didn't play Dark Souls 2, only played 1 and 3. The first time I played Dark Souls 1, I think I never rage quitted before. Like, I never was angry at a computer game until I met the Taurus demon in Dark Souls 1. Oh my god! But I beat the game. Also beat the third one.
Very nice.
And now it's easy, right?
No, I mean I've seen people play it. Question from Otomi Napero. Is there going to be a future for Mag Racer? Possibly. We would very much like there to be. It's a game that would really benefit from the improvements of Godot 4. Like, we were traveling at, I think the boosted speed was like 800 kilometers an hour.
Yeah, like you could cruise at 400 kilometers.
Cruise at 400, and you could, like, it was just insanely fast, and it was fun, and the weapons were great, and you know, the little dragon's breath fireball that would follow the track, and you know, the teams. It was. I think Godot 4 would make it look spectacular, but we are first and foremost an education company, and we have, you know, committed quite a lot of time to making this course. And when Godot 4 comes out, I'm going to be working on the Godot 4 courses, like the Godot 4 from the beginning. That's not the name that we've picked. We've got a good name. You can't have it.
Yes, I really love the making the models in Mag Race as well. So a lot of the time, if a project isn't successful, if we go through the Kickstarter route, then we're still excited about it. We still want to continue doing it, but it's getting to that point where we can put the time aside to actually fully go through with it. Because we spent quite a few months before we even launched the Kickstarter for the action RPG. It was 4 months before we decided, this is before we greenlight it. And obviously at that point you guys are really excited about it. So we'll definitely loop back around at some point. It might not be Mag Racer, it might be some variation upon, you know, use those.
There's some stuff there that I really love to teach. Like the way the tracks work is it's a closed Bezier curve, right? So you can in editor just draw the thing and it will generate the track and the walls and, you know, everything like that. Which means in theory you can give that to the player. Now, the way curves work in Godot 3, and I don't know if this is different in 4, is that's really slow, and the curve is edited based on your camera perspective. So if you don't remember, go from, you know, one of these 3 orthographic points of view, you're not actually drawing the curve where you think you are. It's gone all the way over there somewhere. But if those are fixed or you do your own solution, that's a really fun way of making a course, because there's something about, I've got this track, let's put in this crazy swerve, and you just go drag, 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 and the track just builds itself. It's a lot of fun.
It was really awesome. One of the things that I tried is I downloaded a map of New York, and I put the map of New York in, and I started actually just driving or flying around the city. I made the loop go all around. I was like, it was really, really cool.
Nice.
So the scope of that sort of tech is really awesome. So yeah, I definitely want to revisit it.
The thing about that kind of game especially, I mean, it's true of all games, but especially that kind of game, is the sound design is everything.
Yeah.
Because it's really how you experience the game. And I've played some of these Wipeout-inspired games recently, because there was a couple that came out last year on Steam, like little, you know, 2-person project ones, 1-person project ones. And the sounds are very sort of tinny. and it's just not the same. Like if you don't have that guttural engine that's actually feels like it's speeding up and slowing down, and those incredible bassy weapons and that ridiculously macho voice shouting weapon names at you. Actually wasn't, no, that was just doing Freezer. But the weapons were that weird synthesized woman who was garbling something at me, and I'm like, I don't know what that is. Oh, it's an autopilot. Good, fine. It really creates that world, and if you create the world to the extent that kind of buy-in from the player, they'll just fall in love with it. So sound design, we should do some sound design courses.
What do you think about like the different what's the word, the different skills involved to make a game? Like for example, I actually did a couple of game jams where I would do everything, including sound design, pixel art, programming, writing, but I found like sometimes I'm like, okay, I really can't do this right now, and I actually don't want to do this now, but I have to do it because I'm alone. Like, do you think like it's worth for game developers to at least know the basics of everything?
I think you should know the basics for everything, but I think you should know the basics for everything for when you work in a team. Because then you could speak the same language as the sound designer, the asset designer, and all the rest of it. I've made little game prototypes for tutorials and I've enjoyed them, but the stuff I've made with Michael, where he's like making assets and I'm bringing them in, and he can see, you know, the Aria character he made has now got personality and moves around, and you know, I'm trying to take the assets he's got and make them alive and go back and forth. That really sparks off a lot of ideas, and like how creativity can bounce off each other. It is possible to, I mean, especially if you spend enough time and resources on a project, to do the whole thing by yourself. Like you can. Why? Like you get such better results when you're with a team of people that you click with. Especially if you all have very slightly different ideas of where you're going, because that intersection, that it reminds me of working in theater, but which is something I used to teach, right? It's a creative collaborative process, and that's when it really shines. That has its own downsides when you've got someone quarterbacking, someone saying, no, you have to do it my way. This is good. You do that, at which point you may as well just be doing it by yourself, or like, you know, going to Fiverr and hiring someone to do pixel art. But I think it works best as a team.
Yeah. And the multiplier that you get out and working on a good team is more than the number of people that are on the team. That's the thing. Really drive you forward. Just bouncing an idea off of Jan, you know, I've been really stuck on this thing for the last, and then just by talking about it, I mean, yes, you could have got it with the you become the rubber toucan, yes, but but sometimes it's what someone else says. You're like, oh, okay, I can approach it in a slightly different way after you've said that, and suddenly you're completely unstuck and off you go again. So yeah, definitely working in a team is awesome.
It's also like if you've got one person doing the code and one person doing the art and one person doing the sound, like getting those skeletons from Michael radically altered how I wanted them to move and how I wanted them to look, the feel of the game. And then when Michael played it, that radically altered like the kinds of trees and things he made. Like we're constantly like sparking these ideas off each other. So I think that has a lot of advantages. You can go the sort of auteur route where it's like, no, this is my vision. I'll do this by myself. I think that's risky.
You can be for a number of reasons. You can become very tunnel visioned. Is a good example.
No one's going to tell you your idea doesn't work. You know, it's one of those, it's really easy to just get so much tunnel vision. You do nothing but make your game. You don't go outside. You don't take a break. You don't sleep right. You don't eat right. Like game designers often get themselves into that state of mind and get unwell because they've just burned themselves out through stress and, you know.
So here's the thing, right? So one of the reasons why I started doing devlogs on YouTube was to get feedback. Actually, like I'm very afraid of doing something that I have to abandon, and the reason why is because I've been there. Like I had this one passion project, and I would spend over a year on it. It was a procedurally generated 2D space game with biomes, and I wanted to generate planets and civilizations and conflicts. And in my brain, everything was mapped out, and I was like, yeah, that's going to be amazing. but I would hit a wall at some point. And the reason was I never talked with anyone about this game. Because I was like, this is my game. I was very protective about the concepts I had in my head. Where with Cave, from the beginning, I'm like, okay, like, jump on my Discord and tell me how you find it. And people generally tell me, it's nice what you did there, but I would do it differently. And I'm actually like, okay, I write it down. I have a Trello board and I create a ticket for it and I put it down as improvement because I know, that's going to make the game better. Obviously, yeah.
It's one of those things where being around other people, whether they're actively developing or part of a community that's helping you develop the game, or is you can do the actor's trick of yes and. For those who don't know it, this is the core of improvisation, which is I take your idea, I build upon it, I give it back to you. Yes and. As opposed to, no, this is my idea, you can't come near it, or no, let's do what I want to do. It's, I'm not sure where this is going, but here's my starting point.
You're penned. Yeah.
It's a great game. It's a great game to play, especially if the other person in the conversation doesn't realize what you're playing.
Michael does have a habit of answering everything I say with yes and then just carrying on for a while until I lose my temper with him.
Yes and.
Yeah, we should really figure out the timeline for that. Yes, and we should meet on Tuesday. Sure. What kind of time? Yes, and I'll pick it.
You have trained me well.
Yeah, if you want, I can maybe show you a bit of my game.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Show the cave.
I don't know how we do this with the sound, because I would love to show you the sound effects, but maybe it's too loud and then you can't hear us anymore. Let me figure that out.
So if you just share the actual game via Discord, then the sound should come through. But I don't know about volume.
Yeah, let's
do volume tweaks. It's fine.
Let's see.
Well, that would just turn down BitBrain completely.
So let me figure this out. Okay, I hope this is okay. I need to check.
Oh, nice.
Let me check the stream.
I can hear it.
The stream is fine.
I can hear it. I can hear you fine.
Awesome. Yeah, so this is the current title screen of the, not even the first version. It's like still dev build. And I made these save slots. And all these sound effects are by Tom. And I basically start by give my mountain a name. I say Mount Doom.
Good name.
Because I'm a nerd.
You think that's bad? The last time I played Dwarf Fortress, the randomly named faction name it came up with was the Ballhammers.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I'm not in the game, basically. I don't know how much sound you can hear.
It's quite low. You can probably turn it up a little. I could just hear it, but I've got headphones on. I think anybody...
Some of the students can't, so we might need to turn that up.
I don't know how to turn it up. One sec. Is there a button in Discord?
I could certainly turn...
We might not get the audio unless it's going through your microphone.
Okay. Okay, it doesn't matter. So basically, I'm in this cave right now, and well, at the moment, it's a tech demo, so it's not a game at the moment. And also, the thing on itch.io is still a tech demo because I'm only demonstrating the features, but it's not technically a game yet, right? So I can like go here, I can pick up items. So I have here a rusty copper pickaxe. So one thing, for example, I implemented is item attributes. So you can see this pickaxe is rusty, so its mining speed is reduced. I can also then pick up a forging hammer, and I have like implemented already the basics, which is, for example, this anvil, furnace, some oil bath to cool down items.
Really love how much character you've given that forge, by the way.
Yeah, it's still missing a character. Pun intended. There's gonna be an NPC at some point that's gonna watch over this forge. Yeah, and the latest thing I've implemented that's not visible in my devlog is this chest. And I really like the idea of, as I said, to have things in the world, right? So I can actually open this chest, and then a little item jumps out. I can pick it up, and it's a mysterious letter, and it's sealed. The problem is I cannot open it yet because that's what I'm currently implementing.
Right.
So you can't
Unless you want to open it with your pickaxe, apparently, because the little arrow is pointing to.
Yeah, this little arrow is actually something I've built. That was the first thing I've implemented when I created this game. I need to change that. It's just something I've added in the beginning to show some sort of action. Yeah, and then basically this chest here, you can then use it as a stash.
Michael,
you can, like, put stuff
on
in
the
it.
stream, you should have a volume control. I've just found it.
Mm-hmm.
Turn that up, and then you'll get sound.
Ooh.
Oh.
Does it work?
I have to ask, by the way, is the shimmer from the heat, is that baked into the animation, or is that a shader on top of the animation?
It's not a shader. It's a very, very interesting function combined from sine and cosinus. That's using time to manipulate the radius and intensity of the light source.
Nice.
It's a function. It's a mathematical function.
Awesome.
I mean, I would have gone with.
Oh
that.
yeah. So can people now hear the sound?
Yep. Now they can hear.
Yeah.
Awesome. So one of the problems the version on itch.io had was you would mine something, and it had this terrible explosion sound because these sounds were grabbed from the internet.
Yep.
And Tom actually went and recorded with actual rocks new sound effects.
He went into a cave and started mining.
So now listen to this. 1 sec.
Very nice.
Yeah, so Tom did that.
That's actually one of the challenges that we've come across when trying to map out any sort of sign design course, is the fact that a lot of it is go somewhere with quite a decent quality microphone and record stuff.
I mean, unless you do Foley, but that's a whole different skill set.
Yes.
So one of the things, obviously you can also hear the UI.
Yeah. I love the dripping.
So I have this concept of a tongue here. What makes the crafting in this game unique is that it's not a UI-based crafting system, but it's a crafting system that happens in the world, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, when I have this copper pickaxe now, unfortunately I'm missing coal, so I need to find 4 more coal items because I can only use this with 5 coal. But I can basically grab this, pick this up, and I'm keeping the... Oh, this is a bug, by the way. I don't know why it's showing this icon. That's a bug for sure. But basically, I could then walk here, and with enough coal, I can heat it up and reforge this pickaxe.
Nice.
And I can remove the rustiness, so then actually it becomes better, and it starts increase. The problem is the crafting itself is not skill-based at the moment because you just hit the key and there's no skill involved. However, I want to introduce some sort of mini game where you here then forge
You could do like a rhythm game.
stuff.
Just
Yeah,
like
exactly.
these 4 bars going, and you have to do it to music.
Someone on the Discord suggested you could have something when you press down, the player holds the hammer up, and when you release the key, it releases the hammer.
Nice.
And then you could use that as some sort of rhythm mechanic. Yeah, that was an idea someone had.
And I'm guessing, what are you using? Cellular automata for the caves, or?
So I played around with cellular automata, but it wasn't really effective. So it was quite slow, and it wasn't fast enough. So what I actually ended up with is simplex noise.
Oh, okay.
So
Nice.
so what I'm basically doing is I have a grid, which is like a giant grid of like 200 by 200 cells, and then for each cell I check if if a particular value is in a particular threshold of that simplex noise. And if it's in the threshold, I'm going to place a tile. And the result will be a cave like this, basically. I'm quickly finding 3 more coal to
this is why
show you the
debug
forging
mode, so you can spawn coal in.
I mean, I could do that, but that would be cheating. Yeah, too.
I mean, I'm not saying type in IDDQD.
No, you're saying type in IDKFA.
And at the moment, you see there's like nothing really going on in the game. Like, it's empty.
I guess it's a tech demo.
Yeah, and the idea is to have actual levels. So this is not going to be a procedurally generated game. It's going to be a hybrid. So a lot of it will be actually built manually. So a lot of the levels will be built by hand. And then some areas are procedurally generated like this.
Then you can have the best of both procedural generation for your cave environment, where it might not need curating, but then you can also have the benefits of highly curated content for specific areas.
Yep.
I'm gonna reforge this pickaxe now. So I'm gonna go here, press E. It's now gonna heat up, and then I can pick my hammer and I can forge. So it looks like this. And currently it's no skill involved. I can just press the button and that's it. The cool thing is I actually simulated the heat, so this item is actually hot.
Oh, nice.
So I actually when I pick it up now, see, it got actually mining speed now, and it's not rusty any longer.
Yeah.
So now it's a little bit faster. You notice maybe it's a little bit faster, and that's basically the current game. Obviously, there are also other materials you can find to craft even better pickaxes, and basically this is going to be the first update on HIO. Like roughly this version will be on HIO. Hopefully next month, but I can't promise anything because I need to fix a lot of bugs like this one on the bottom.
And we'll do the Sherry Tweety thing because I'm on your Discord server.
Yeah.
One thing I should point out, by the way, is that Bit makes all of his own pixel art, and he's really good at it. Like, I wish I was good at pixel art. I'm really not. Like, I just never practiced that skill. It's one of those things that when you see good pixel art, because it's so simple, your brain goes, it must be easy.
Yeah. No, it really isn't.
Like, it took me a long time, though. Like, it's not like I sat down and built this. Like, if you want to see how the game looked in the very beginning, I can maybe show it as a direct comparison.
I mean, it's great seeing this sort of stuff because a lot of people, and quite rightly so, show off the latest and greatest stuff and completely forget that you go through this stage of it being really raw, being very blocky. But yeah, seeing early iterations is great.
So now watch this. So if someone doesn't know this game, I'm going to show you this game. And this version is, I think, 9 months old. Here we go. People can see that.
Yep.
This looks familiar, right?
It does, but also very different.
So I don't know if you can hear that, but first of all, the performance is not very great, and these are the performance. Oh, this is so loud. Sorry.
Mountain blew up.
And this is 9 months progress, basically, right, on a game.
Turn that down on my side.
Yeah, and it's very, very rudimentary, and that's basically it. You have an iron pickaxe. I think drag and drop already worked, but you have no idea what you are going to pick up. Like, it doesn't tell you.
I was so pleased with myself when I got drag and drop working with the little icon thing.
Yeah.
And the not at all bug I did where when you pick up an object, it's very slightly bigger in your hand and you drop it so it actually looks like you're picking it up. And I'm telling everyone I did that on purpose. Nope. It's just my bad math skills.
Yeah.
Well, that's sometimes, happy accidents are always a great thing to have in your game. You've just saved yourself time figuring that part of it out. That's all.
Yeah.
But no,
and that's yeah.
I love the amount of character in that game. Like, it has a real atmosphere already. I say game in that tech demo.
So I actually played a lot of Resident Evil 8. And my favorite thing about Resident Evil 8 is the sound design of the main character. So when you walk, you hear him breathe, and when you run, he's exhausted, and sometimes he's like, and I really like this, and actually want to do something similar but more subtle, where you actually hear this little character breathe. You actually hear also the footsteps, and also the bag will sound different depending how much you have in your inventory. The thing is, no one will actually notice, but it's so subtle that
difference.
That you're like, wait, this feels interesting, but you can't tell why it feels interesting until
I had a sound design tutor when I was an undergrad who once said that, as far as he was concerned, if a sound designer was doing his job right, you should never know he was there.
Yeah.
Like, you notice bad sound effects, perfect sound effects just go in. Like, I found this wonderful CC0 birdsong track for the Overworld, and you never notice it, but it just feels right. But when it wasn't there, the world felt weird and sort of empty. And
yeah, I think ambient sound is again a complete own barrel. So the sound, like the ambient sound in Cave currently, is just one track looped. These weird raindrops, and it's like something I think it's some royalty-free thing I grabbed from YouTube, a royalty-free thing from YouTube. But we want to change it with the next update, where it's using Fmod to adaptively compose the ambience based on the objects that are in the environment. So, for example, when you have water there, you hear a little water flowing thingy, and if you are in a dwarven village, you hear maybe people mumbling and talking in the background, and and
with Fmod especially, you could do all kinds of things with, like, how big is the space around you, or
and this is, I think, the interesting part about ambient sound, to really bring something alive. It's the same in movies with the room tone.
Soundscapes are fascinating.
Definitely.
Because the amount of okay, I'm about to use a word that sounds really bad. Emotional manipulation you could do with your players. I don't mean that the bad way. I mean, like, you're taking them on this journey. You're helping them create this world.
I just watched a Tentacruel video on exactly that, how music can be very manipulative. And that's essentially
I love that guy.
Yeah,
me too.
You're trying to make the player, in this case, feel a certain way. And we've mentioned it before. I gave Jan some dungeon music, which was perfectly fine, apart from we're not making a horror. We want something a bit more adventurous.
So he opened up his music program, and he's like, "Here's the first pass. What do you think?" And it was great. It was great dungeon music, and it was all like da 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 da. I was like, that's fine, but this is not the game. I mean, that's a completely different player experience. Well, also that's recommending off, but that's a completely different game experience. For
I'm
those of you who
allowed
don't
to have
know
my
Tentacruel, no, great.
Yeah.
This is Tentacruel's page. Tentacruel is someone who has a PhD in composition, music composition, and worked as a UI and UX designer. And he's got some wonderful videos on music theory that I'm not at that level. I can't follow the whys and wherefores, but they're great. But he's got some analyzing composition software, Sibelius and MuseScore and Doric. And just from a game design point of view, watch these, because the kinds of points he's making on presenting complex information, or the assumptions you're making of what your player understands, or just the way that you've pieced together this system organically and it makes sense to you, and then you put it in front of somebody and they just don't get it. Like,
did you know that he got hired now? He's now the product owner of Audacity.
Yeah.
And Muse.
Yeah.
So hopefully Audacity will actually be easier to use at some point in the future. Because that Audacity is a wonderful open source music, not really music, audio editor. and it's incredibly powerful, but it's menu driven. It's like it's been built by software engineers for software engineers.
It looks very, very 1995.
Yeah, but it's a brilliant
which
program.
is not fair because it's an amazing program. But just if you don't already know everything is, you're never going to find it.
Yeah,
like there's all kinds of features in Audacity that he was showing off in the video that I didn't even know it could do.
Yeah.
But watch, I mean, especially his videos on Sibelius, where he basically loses his mind over this competent but badly designed piece of software.
I think that's one of my favorite videos of his. Where
amazing.
I just laugh when people make fun of bad UX. Yeah.
Yeah,
UX is a very opinionated area, right? You can have great UX, but then some people find it not nice.
Some people are used to a different paradigm, though. That's one of the big issues you can run into. One of the things that I'd always recommend people do if you're making a game is to put. You've probably got someone even in your family who's not interested in playing games, but they may be interested in helping you. So you put them down in front of them, explain like the purpose of the game, but don't tell them how to play, and see what sort of problems they have. I remember I was trying to get my partner into gaming, and we tried playing zombie game that is daughter dies at the very beginning, can't remember it now, Last of Us. So we're playing The Last of Us, and right at the very beginning you take control, you're looking around a vehicle. That's supposed to be teaching you how to look around, I suppose. And then you're getting out of the building, you're carrying your daughter, I think, and you're stumbling around everywhere. And then you go through this scene where you go through a bar, basically, and you've got to stumble from where you are to the bar door in order to get through. And after about 15 attempts, I think the TV was in danger. But it was that point. She didn't have all of the necessary skills to get there using the controller. And at that point, any sort of game designer could step in and go, okay, this is a point where any new, and this was on easy, new players just will not succeed at this. What experienced players call mundane.
Very interesting as well, because there's a lot of assumptions we make about what is obvious, and intuitive. And the one I'm thinking of in particular is WSAD. Like, games use WSAD, but I remember the first game that did that. And I remember back in the 90s, that's not how games worked. And recently I watched a GTA 5 streamer, and he was one of these he streams every day. Match that like a surprise. Let's see what we can do in GTA. We're going to play all the GTA games that ever were in one sitting. So let's start with GTA.
What's up, everyone?
Yeah, very much like that. Like, just got to get the monetization going, got to work the algorithm, got to get everyone involved, got to get them commenting, got to get the, And he starts with GTA 1, and he can't play it. And it takes him 10 minutes to figure out. But the cursor buttons move the car. Well, what's fire? How do I fire? Why is it control? Like, because when Doom came out, those were the controls.
Yeah,
I remember holding down control for strafe.
Quake.
Yeah, you had to hold down. Was it control for strafe?
Control was fire. There was no strafe.
Was there not? Maybe I'm thinking of Quake, but then again,
I mean, Doom introduced strafe, but you could only do strafe if you're using the mouse, but nobody used the mouse. And for a while, if you started using the mouse, you'd use the cursor arrows to strafe and move forward and back, and the mouse. So you're over here.
Yeah.
And the mouse is controlling you. WSAD is a pretty new convention, and we take it for granted, but this is wonderful Kim Robertson saying the tyranny of common sense. Right? You don't question the things that you take for granted, and so you just assume everyone else does as well. So it's a really good idea to put these in front of people who don't understand these types of games and seeing, can they work? I mean, the fact that we had a player who didn't know that there was an inventory they could open and that they could equip a weapon meant I had to put in a tutorial for my tech demo to teach you to do this, because otherwise you're just not going to know. As much as I make fun of the idea of, I mean, I actually have in my known issues, trying to use a weapon you're not holding will do nothing. This is a known issue.
It's something I haven't shown in Cave. It actually supports a controller.
Okay.
And you saw these control hints on the buttons, right? And if you enable the controller, the hints will automatically switch to the Xbox layout.
Yeah.
So someone who has by accident their controller connected starts the game, they know what to press. And yeah, this was like quite important to me to make this approachable. I quickly wanted to mention one big inspiration again for me as a game designer is World of Warcraft Classic, the original World of Warcraft. So I have this amazing book. It's called The WoW Diary. So for anyone who used to play World of Warcraft or is into MMOs, I highly recommend get that book because it's written from one of the game designers of the original World of Warcraft, and he built all the dungeons, and it's quite technical but also very interesting. And in that book, he writes that they wanted to launch this game in China and in Asia, right? And in the internet cafes, people usually play games with one hand. And the reason why that is because with the other hand, they need to hold the cigarette.
Right.
So they hold the cigarette and then they play with the other hand. So they actually had to make World of Warcraft playable with just the mouse. And when you play the game, you notice you can play this game with just the mouse. If you want to move, you need to press both left and right mouse key down to move. If you want to attack something, you just click on it, right? And this like thinking, right? It's mind blowing to me, right?
I mean, I solved that with my MMO mouse.
Yeah.
Like when I'm playing Guild Wars 2, I've just got all the buttons I need on my thumb because I cannot. I'm just not doing that. I'm 45 years old. I'm not moving my hand that fast.
You can't be asked.
I'm not doing it. Like
I'll just press like 6 buttons at once.
No, this is a solved problem. I'm going to move my thumb and do something awesome. I'm not going to try and travel all the way across the keyboard to find one specific key in the heat of battle. I'm not doing it. Here's a question. Do you see your game, tech demo for now, played on Steam Deck when that comes out? I'm guessing that's a question for Miguel.
Yes. So actually, realistically, I already wrote that on my Discord. My game will come out before 2030. Hopefully, but not sooner.
So it might be might be on the Stream Deck too.
Yeah. So before 2030, but not sooner.
Okay. So
I want
to back in time.
Yeah, I actually want to get the Steam Deck, and I want to make it mobile friendly because I want to make this game very accessible. So yes, and if there's a Steam Deck 2 for that as well. So Switch, maybe the next Switch, I don't know. I definitely want to port it to portable consoles as well.
Yeah. I mean, that also helps limit your choices. When you're designing on a PC and you've got 100 odd keys in front of you, it's very tempting to have this key do that, this other key do that. Whereas controllers have a lot of benefit where you can actually do multiple, but you might be able to do 4 or 5 presses of different buttons at once if you really wanted to, but you are ultimately limited to,
I remember back in the
few
day,
buttons.
And I'm talking like the ZX Spectrum right up to like the Amiga 500 and the Atari ST, when games started becoming quite complex and you started getting like military flight simulators and things. And the solution they found to, we have a really complex control system, was not how do we refine it and make it more elegant, was so we need to include a keyboard overlay that people can put on. So while they're playing the game, they can find which key does what. Which is, by today's game design standards, like anathema to everything. Like you can't just put an overlay over the keyboard. Although there are games that still have like these huge lists of keys that you're expected to scroll down and find the thing you need.
I think Factorio does that really well. You can play it without knowing any of the hotkeys, and I've played it for a couple of 100 hours now, and I didn't know that you could hold down the Z key to drop one item in one thing that would accept the item. It's revolutionized like doing certain things.
Well, and that feels like a thing they should have taught you. I mean, I'm just putting it out there.
It's like shortcuts on GitHub where you can press T to jump to a file.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're coming up to the hour and a half. So, Michael, would you like to do one more show of our boys where people could get ready with their last questions, concerns, comments, interpretive dances?
Of course.
Boyd.
I will push Boyd's later. So I managed to sleep for a whole 2 hours last night. So my plan of getting up today and pushing it ready for you guys to download didn't work. But I will get this to you guys tomorrow. And I'll make the announcements and all the rest of it. So you can go to our page, download it. It's not a Kickstarter backer exclusive. Anyone can download our prototype. I like the Boyd's white, but they don't show up on thing.
So I've made them blue, so they blend in with the sky.
Nailed it.
Nailed
And share
it.
your
There's
screen
one.
locally.
Backstreet Boys.
Nice.
Backstreet Boys, all right.
Well, that's the game. That's the theme song for the game done.
Yep. Don't worry, guys. I've got your hand. I'll be guiding you with the music. It's fine.
Oh, this looks so cool.
Oh,
It looks so natural. It looks so natural with the boys.
Right. This is kind of why because the overworld was never part of these like core. We have to get there, but we really wanted as a stretch goal because you can make these amazing worlds with just a couple of plugins. And I'm using 3 plugins here. I'm using the Waterways plugin. We've hidden the invisible walls, so you can't keep following this water forever, but you don't feel like you're boxed in. There's a couple of little spots we've hidden around the place. There's a little picnic area, and it just feels nice. And the fact that the leaves and the trees blow, and it's all using the same noise map, so that the wind is actually consistent between trees. It's so satisfying when it works, and you just get into the world. And of course, we can't hear it locally, but there's, water sounds and everything else.
I'm actually planning to build a game over Halloween. I'm going to do a 3D game in Godot. It's going to be a horror game. And my plan is to create a horror game that I'm scared to play myself.
Okay.
That's Inspector the game.
Oh, there's a pair of them whizzing around.
Yeah, so if I wanted to spend a lot more time on the Boyds, I could get them, a lot more optimized, a lot more fluid. But I kind of like the semi-chaotic nature. Like, one of the ways I'm dealing with, when you get beyond a certain range, they're not using the same invisible wall as the players, because I want them to be able to fly up above that hill. Then I want you to start heading towards the origin +5 beaters. And what that means is they'll go a certain way and they'll suddenly swing back and drag a whole bunch of boys with them, and it just feels like they're dancing.
Will this game feature a day-night cycle?
In Godot 4, that'll be trivial, because all we have to do is rotate the directional light of the sun, and it will just calculate it.
Oh yeah, I saw that, right? It calculates the sun stuff, the atmosphere, right?
Yep. And it does like the daylight, the nighttime, the dusk, the dawn, just by rotating one thing. So you just put on an animation player and you're done.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's easy. And there's a bunch of other things in our stretch goals for the overworld that we're looking forward to as well. And these are just our prototype assets. Like with the asset packs for the overworld, we've got more flowers coming, probably more tree types. Like here, I think we've got 6 trees, 2 types of grass, a fern, and a single rose.
Yeah, it's amazing how full it feels, even though there's a model, there's a model, there's a model. That's all the grassy type stuff. As you were saying, rose, and there are a couple of different variations on pine tree. I managed to find a really nice workflow in Blender to take a basic pine tree and make it into all of these different variations. Being optimal helps when producing a lot of assets. And it's amazing how full it feels with about 10 models.
And I got to say, and I keep banging on about this, the thing that really helped us find the style for this game was right when we started, we just picked a palette from Low Spec 500 or Low Spec, and everything in the game fits that palette, and it just makes everything feel good. Let's find out what Bob says, because we've got a random poster showing up.
I don't want you to spoil the tutorial, but
do you want to show off the tutorial?
What I basically want to ask is, you probably didn't place all these grass things manually, right?
No. This is using the scatter plugin.
It's using something scatter, right? Okay.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful plugin, and it's what you do is you
then draw it, or
you draw an area. You use a Bezier curve to define an area.
Okay.
And then you give it the rules, and you say, okay, I want you to scatter randomly. and you're allowed to randomly transform. In this case, you can transform on the y-axis on rotation by up to 360 degrees, and on scale on X and Z by up to 1.5 times. And here are the items you can use, and I want this many of them. So in this case, I said I want 2,500, and you can use these two grasses, this fern, this rose, and it's done. And then you say, okay, now I want you to exclude the following paths. I drew where the river was, I drew where the path was, and it's done. I said, okay, exclude around this point. I put one around the house, I put around the picnic, and we have grass that doesn't go in the water. The rocks don't follow those rules, so we can have rocks in the water, but not on the path.
I got a bit too excited when I saw rocks in the river.
But that's part of what we're looking at. We're going to have to see if that changes, like how that's done in Godot 4. I'm sure Hungry Proton is going to be updating that. But it might work slightly differently. And there are some tricks you need to do. Like if you're doing something this size, you have to change the bake length of the curves. Otherwise, you can't edit them. Like you can't do like one check every 10 centimeters. You have to do it once every 10 meters. But yeah, it's and those logs as well are little static props we've got in there that are just randomly placed. We can also place individual pieces.
Yep, so you can customize after the fact.
Yeah, for me, I cannot wait to actually do this this tutorial series you have planned for Godot 4. Not only like because I want to learn Godot 4, it's going to have a lot of changes, but I also want to learn 3D. And I want to learn 3D with an RPG, right? And all these things together, like knowing that there will be a point in the future where I will know these things thanks to that tutorial, it's great.
We're really looking forward to see what people can make, and also the variations.
Yeah.
I'd say we can go to the dungeon again, but we kind of saw that. The other thing you could do as well is I've got the voids working slightly insectoidally, so there's nothing saying you can't just go grab a butterfly shader and replace them with butterflies and just have them flying like that.
I think one thing Godot needs is similar to prefabs in Unity. It needs to have some sort of store or like something where you can upload your scenes and you can like reuse them in other games.
Yes. There's rumors constantly that they're looking into it, but how true they are, I don't know.
Because that would really make game jams more interesting for this kind of stuff, because you can just throw everything in and
if you go into a game jam and you've actually got an asset pack, that's so useful.
One of the things I'm actually really interested in as well is, and I've just remembered that this is a thing, the kinds of decisions you need to make this run optimally, and the fact that people don't notice them. Like we have shadows for all the trees and things, but hardly anyone notices the foliage doesn't cast shadow. And the reason for that is it's expensive. And if I have 2,500 of them plus 2,000 trees up top that don't need shadows, let's just not do that. And removing those just massively improves the frame rate. Like just deciding how real does this have to look.
We have to be careful because you end up with a bit of a mismatch of styles. We had the ground is a great example where we've gone backwards and forwards several times. One of the original prototypes had textured ground. We had textured ground when we started doing this, and then we're like, it just doesn't fit. In fact, Aria herself doesn't fit, but there's less of a disconnect if the world and the character are slightly different. So she's got smooth shading on her in places, whereas everything else in the game, I just kick this under the bench. Give me my drugs.
These are the kinds of conversations we like having at the beginning of the lectures, because you don't have to take the path we took. One of the conversations I used to teach my theatre design students was the wrong decision is the one you didn't make. Right? Like your game doesn't have to look like this. I wanted a very flat polygon style, and the trees and the clouds are all designed to follow that. Like Michael drew these clouds specifically to match that style. But there's no reason why your game has to look like that. As long as you have a reason why not and you're consistent with it, you can make it work. But if you just assume, if you just do the thing without making the decision, then it's wrong. So yeah, I think we should start looking at questions and things. Atomi says, are these scattered plants generated randomly every time the game runs? Or they stay the same? They stay the same. So when you generate them, it'll look at the collision map and it'll say, okay, where do I place them? And then you go, yes, that's fine.
Yeah.
If I change anything, they'll regenerate. And one of the things you have to do with a height map is you have to update the collision mesh on the height map because it's not a static body and the scatter plugin doesn't know how to read it. So you have to say, okay, now you're a collision, go back to scatter or say, okay, here's your trees. But they're not generated at runtime. You could do something that generates it at runtime, but then the loading time is massive.
And you see that in games. You see that in any game that's got some sort of procedural generation, it has a long load time. And you're often wondering why. And that's the reason. That's the reason it's generating the world for you to play in. And a lot of games, even if they're 2D, can take a while to load in and generate the world. The classic one, of course, is Minecraft. Does actually show you it's loading your local area. It shows you a visual representation of those chunks spawning in.
I love that loading spinner. It's so satisfying to watch.
So yeah, I think we're coming up to the end. I want to say thank you so much for joining us, Miguel. It's been an absolute joy to talk to you and see you again.
Always again.
And thank you for the folks. It's Michael, help! I'm tired. Do the sign off.
Okay, bye. It's been absolutely wonderful having you guys here. It's been brilliant having BitBrain on as well. I'm going to see if we can get him on more often. It's been awesome having him.
Lovely idea. Thank you for your comments and support and questions. Thank you for Miguel for showing us his game and sharing his insights and questions.
Yes.
Thank you for coming to our party. We had a lovely time. Thank you for the jelly and the ice cream.
I missed the ice cream.
It's fine. It was delicious. Folks, have a great time. We shall see you next week. I shall let you know when the new version is out with Boyd, so you can chase them around the place and see them get lost and find each other again, and hopefully not get stuck in trees this time. Or do what they would do for 2 days and just hover around the origin, refusing to go anywhere.
Oh, occasionally, because they're completely random, they do get stuck in trees as well, which is, they look like angry bees at that point.
If the cohesion is too high, they will.
Yeah.
Because what happens is one will hit a tree and turn around, but then all the ones behind it will drag it back, and they'll just like clump.
Well, thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Press the button.